Hi there, and welcome to my spoiler talk for Detroit Become Human. This is where we can talk about anything and everything when it becomes of a game, and the game we're going to talk about today is Detroit Become Human. That means major spoiler warning alert. We are going to talk about everything. There is nothing that's going to be off limits in regards to the spoiler review and the spoiler talk, so feel free to put any comment down below that you want because let me tell you, there's a lot of different scenarios that happen that we're not even going to be able to cover in this spoiler talk. So if you have a situation that you went through that I didn't talk about in this spoiler talk, feel free to put that comment down below and let's have that conversation about that situation, because some of them are truly amazing scenarios and interesting scenarios that took place within the game. So let's get started right away so we can just get right and moving. I just wanted to talk about, though, in the very beginning of just that I talked about how it was truly a choose your own adventure because of just so many different endings. And I struggled so much to approach how to do the spoiler talk just because there were so many scenarios, endings, adjustments that happened throughout the game. I'm like, how am I going to break this down? So I kind of thought of breaking it down a little differently than I broken down other spoiler talks. Usually I break down certain events, but I'm actually going to break down characters. And I'm going to go through each of the three main characters and kind of talk through the scenarios I've been through, offer some reactions to certain situations that I was in, and then also talk about some alternatives that I did not experience myself, but I did go back and view when I viewed alternate endings for the game, because I just wanted to be able to know what happens to other characters besides what happened in my story. So I'm going to start out with Kara first. And for Kara, I ended up killing Alice, the little girl's father, when I was trying to save her from being hurt from her father. And I had stolen, so we had run away. I stole money from the store, which was a really great scene, a really great scenario. I think it really captured the desperation of a person and how someone's willing to do what it takes to save somebody they care about. And having the scenario where I think I had the girl, she knocked down a bunch of cans and I snuck behind the counter and took the money and then just walked away like it was nothing. And Alice made me feel really bad for doing that. But at the same time, I kept saying in my mind, like, you just don't understand. You're going to hate me more sleeping on the street than you are if we try to sleep in a nice hotel room, which is what we tried to do. And we stole clothes as well to change our outfits, and then we went in and got a motel room. We then escaped the detective when Connor showed up with Hank. When they both showed up, we escaped them on the highway and the freeway, which was one of the most tense scenes I played. There was moments I missed a button press and I freaked out thinking my character was going to die, and I didn't want them to die at all. And so I had a mini freak out, and it ended up being okay, but still on the freeway, it really captured the tenseness and how fast you have to react with the button presses. I felt like that truly captured it so well. I was like, wow, I felt scared, nervous about the whole scenario. It was just great. That was great. Then we kind of escaped and went into, and I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, I think, Zlatko's house, where I did avoid getting my memory wiped. I did avoid that. I was able to get out in time, just barely. I was freaking out because I thought I was going to get my memory wiped. Like I said, there were so many moments of tenseness. And kind of in that scenario, when you went in that house, I knew something was off. I knew something was weird when that happened, when that scenario took place. It had that vibe, and it captured the vibe so well of just something's not right here. It did it excellent. And in getting out of it, I escaped the very tense scene, it was a great escalation scene. It grew and grew and grew, and then changed into a scary scenario where I'm trying to find the little girl, and I can't find her. I can't remember her name right now. Alice, that's what it is. Alice. I couldn't find Alice. I was looking for her everywhere. I ended up unlocking the cage to the bear, trying to find her. I talked with someone that was in the bathtub and told him not to talk, and he was okay not talking for me. But then they discovered that she was gone as soon as I found her. And hiding was so tense, was so scary. And I became so tense that I thought they were going to find us if I stood in one spot too much. So I peeked. And when I peeked, oh man, I regretted that moment because I got found. And so we were running all over the place. I unleashed the android polar bear, which was the coolest thing. I was like, android animals, that is so genius. That's so great. So I unleashed the polar bear, and it went to town. But we got out, and then ended up Zlako died from Luther and his creations. His creations where they're kind of broken down androids. Killed him, and we all escaped. So Luther then joined us in the end. I know I'm skipping a bunch of other scenarios, but they just weren't as impactful. I will mention quick the fair ride area. The amusement park area was kind of cool. I did like that. I did like that area, even though that scene wasn't as impactful. Although it didn't have much to that scene. I think it was more just a character building for Luther and Kara as characters. But anyways, we were not found throughout the entire time. We were able to go to Jericho, and I have to talk about this moment. The moment that you discover that Alice was not what you thought she was all along. That she was not human. She was an android. And it just surprised me so much, but it also made so much sense. And it also put some relief on me, because I was like, in my mind throughout this game, I was like, why would the mom leave her with this dad in this bad situation for her? This terrible and awful situation that no one wants to happen to a child. Why would you leave your daughter to do for that? And I know that sometimes, unfortunately, it does happen, which it shouldn't at all whatsoever. Nothing like what the father did to the child, or tries to do to Kara when he hurts her and has to get her fixed. That's unfortunate. That shouldn't happen. It's very sad. And so it just made me feel slightly relief, going like, okay, he didn't leave her in that scenario, and it's just unfortunate that the android android girl had to suffer in the process of it. But it always made me think, did he ever hurt the android girl that he had to get her fixed? And did Kara ever notice that? That was something that popped in my head that I didn't think about very much, but I wondered if the girl was deviant the whole time, or if she wasn't deviant. I couldn't tell if that she crossed the line in regards to deviant. I think she did, because she was giving hints to Kara the entire time, and maybe she was deviant at the time and was giving those hints to get Kara into deviancy. I don't know, I might be pronouncing deviancy wrong, but I'm going to use it in that contextual way. But I'm trying to get her into deviancy so that they can handle the situation that's before them, which is a bad scenario. But I also thought it was interesting of the reason that Kara could not tell Alice was a human child, that Kara wanted to see her that way, that her perception of Alice was that she wanted to see her as human. She wanted her to be that way. And it put me in just a deep thought of how we perceive these things can completely change of how we treat others, which is so unfortunate, because if we have a bad perception of somebody, we treat them poorly. And if we have a good perception of somebody, we will treat them better. And it just opened up my eyes and opened up her eyes in front of her to just see that, even though she's an android, you treated her as a human, that it doesn't matter. That it doesn't matter that you're an android. You should just be treated the same way, like with respect. Same thing with creatures, animals. Unfortunately, I feel bad for the ants and the bugs that we do kill. But it just shows just how perception really matters in regards to how we treat others. And it just opened my eyes to that. I thought that was a beautiful message that I think maybe got lost in this game a little bit from other messages and how other people were seeing things. But I thought that was just a powerful moment. I was like, that was really good storytelling, really good. I also want to mention that so they finally escaped as well. We we escaped every checkpoint with Luther. We went to Canada. We were safe from being killed or persecuted or any found. I did want to mention I did find the tickets on the ground and I did not give them back. I felt so terrible. I was heart wrenched when I was like, but I need these tickets to get away. And later on, I found out there's another scenario you could have done where you didn't need the tickets, but I felt like I needed them for to get out. So I thought about that decision so hard, and I was so gut wrenched when I decided not to give the tickets back to the family that dropped them, and I felt so awful. But oh, that was just a gut wrenching moment. What did you do in that scenario? I'm curious on how the other people handled that scenario because that was a really hard moment. That family really needed those tickets, and so did we. And so I was selfish and took them. Probably in real life, I don't actually, to be honest, I don't know what I really would do in that scenario. I would, in my mind, say yes, I would give them back. But if I was that desperate, would I really give them back? I don't know, which is really hard to say. It's at that moment, two people are trying to survive, and sometimes I'm even getting a headache right now trying to think of what I would do in that scenario. I don't know. I would just say I don't know. What would you do really in that scenario? And I think that just the game did a great job of it. But interesting alternative endings I did want to talk about, but one of the biggest one I saw was that if you got caught near the end, you were put in one of those camps, which I considered a concentration camp for androids. It literally was, even though they were calling it just a camp, where you can either die there or you can escape there. And I think it was just so powerful. The powerful moment that I noticed was when you saw all the androids without the skin, without the transparency of the skin, where it's just their outer shell, that white outer shell, all of them just walking in a camp that looks like a concentration camp was a really powerful moment. And it really just showed of how that really is just like any kind of discrimination or anything like that, that being treated like that is awful, and no one wants to feel like that. No group should feel like that at all whatsoever. But I do want to say it's just such a powerful visual. Just seeing all the white, seeing all the white shells was just so powerful to see that they all looked the same, and that's like the one thing that they all have in common, that you can identify them as an android. Besides that circle on their chip thing, but some of them take the chip out, so you can't identify them. But overall, I think Kara was interesting way to see how people are on the run and just trying to have a better life and doing whatever it takes to make sure that they do have a better life for themselves. And really at this time, and I mean, not Heavy Rain, Detroit, this game was in production, was being made years ago. And so, the message that they're sending right now really probably resonates more than ever, especially in a time, the current times we have in our society, especially in the United States with immigration and that kind of issue. I'm not going to get political on this series, but I do want to say that they are really taking from that, or that is taking from this, in that understanding the side of people just do what it takes to make sure they have a better life for their family. And unfortunately, sometimes in this moment, they're breaking rules, they're breaking laws to make sure that they are safe and they are not hurt. And just like some families that come here illegally, which is unfortunate, that they have to flee their own place, that they don't feel safe anymore. And it's kind of just an opposite scenario where the United States for them is not safe, and they have to go to Canada to feel like they can be safe again. So it's just a really interesting time that I was like, this kind of was an interesting time for this game to come out, and I didn't expect this message to come out when they showed off Detroit Become Human, because I didn't see this kind of scenario happening. But this scenario really relates to current times. So Next character, Marcus, which I did say he was my least favorite character. I said that, and I still hold to it because he was just so generic, and his story was not shining any new perspective on anything that would make the game as interesting. Now, he did have a couple interesting moments, I will admit that. It just overall, his story arc just wasn't as interesting. And even the alternatives of his story arc was not interesting at all. I will say, for me, I took the aggressive approach. I did that because, and I decided to kill others, fight others in every scenario. Now, I did that for a couple reasons. One, I did that because it's an alternative to the peaceful movements that we've seen in history groups take. And I wanted to see their perspective on if a group got violent, how would that be handled? Because when I was looking back at alternatives, at the alternative options, and seeing how those scenarios played out, they played out exactly how things like Martin Luther King, when Black Americans were trying to gotten better freedoms for themselves and to be equal with every other person in America. So they did a good job in copying that in a sense. And so I wanted to see how they took the violent scenario and what would that escalate to. So that's the only reason why I took the aggressive approach. So when I went to the broadcasting station, I killed the people, and I even killed my own ally. I killed him. I didn't let him talk. I was going to be the hard person in this scenario. But I do want to talk just a little bit. I did talk about a bit in my non-spoiler review. But I did want to mention that one of the most interesting scenes in the entire game was when I made the first statement about recognizing androids as a species and as a race and as a group that needs to have rights just like every other. And it really was just a great scene. I did like that scene a lot. It added perspective, especially after making that speech, like I said in my non-spoiler review, going through and talking through the media and how they broke down what I said and how that was perceived by others, and that there wasn't always the best language, and you chose what you thought was best for you at that moment. And it was just interesting. The only thing I wished was that they did give you a couple of them where both of them were non-win scenarios, which I totally understand. That's realistic. But when I was thinking one was going to go off better in the media, it did not, which I guess is more realistic. I turn back on my comment. I guess I don't. I like that. I like when it's more real. So I did not end up. I did end up marching to set them free, but then I marched in violence. I did not march in peacefulness, and I failed to attempt to free people from the camps, and I ended up nuking Detroit. So I was at the scenario where everyone died but me and North, and we were together, and yeah, obviously we had a relationship, so I kissed her, and then I blew up Detroit. It was a interesting scenario for me. I did look up alternative endings, which included the singing instead. To do the peaceful march, you did singing instead, which was it didn't copy exactly what Black Americans did. I know they did sing when they did walk and march, but to like free a camp, I didn't expect them to sing. I expected something different, and so when I saw them sing in that scenario, I thought that was peaceful and a great way to show peace in regards to saying like we're a peaceful movement. We just want equal rights just like everyone else. The one part I did really enjoy was that painting in the beginning, and just that the beginning scenario with Carl. Carl was such a great character. I enjoyed Carl, and I guess I relate to Carl probably a lot more because I work with people with disabilities as my main job, and so I relate to what it takes to take care of Carl, and I maybe already had that connection to start for taking care of Carl, but I loved his philosophy on things. I loved how he saw things, and how he was just a peaceful man, and I was so gut-wrenched when he died at the beginning. I knew it was going to happen. It was bound to happen, but I was just so mad when it happened. I was so sad and so mad, especially when I got the blowback for it. I was just like, how dare you think that I would harm Carl? Carl is such an innocent man, and I think they really captured how innocent he truly was in the beginning of the game. I think they did a great job establishing how truly innocent and caring he was. And I knew his son obviously was going to get involved and killed him. The one moment that I thought, that was the moment where it was cliche, but the acting, the performance worked so well that it sold it for me. It really did. There's total moments in this whole game where the dialogue is so bad, but the performances are so good that it sells the badness. It sells it just enough that you enjoy it and you have some emotional connection to some characters. Now, let us move on to the final character, Connor, which was my favorite character of the game. He truly was my favorite, and it was just, I loved him throughout the game, and how you were fighting with Connor between doing what was your goal and what you thought was right. And because you're not supposed to have a thought of your own. Oh, there were so many moments, like when Hank was hanging off the ledge, when you had to, in the chase, and you had to make the choice of whether to grab Hank to save him, even though I was like, Hank will probably be fine, but, or go and get the guy. And I chose to save Hank, and he really just turned into, which I thought was going to happen. Again, cliche, knew it was going to happen, but the performances are so good that, that Hank turned really into a father figure because he lost his son, and he had such a hate for androids. It's the scenario where he hates androids and then he ends up loving them. It's just it's like every scenario ever. So cliche scenario, I guess. But he really turned into the father figure, and that it did grow naturally. I did jump in front of a bullet to save Hank. And that was the moment when I talked to my non-spoiler review where I was so nervous about moving on, because I did not want to. I was like, I liked Connor's story so well. I didn't want him to die, and I didn't want to lose the story, because I played a game like Heavy Rain. Short spoiler for Heavy Rain: if one of the characters die, like, you lose that entire scenario of that character forever. And I thought that was going to happen for this character, but I was so happy I didn't, because seeing Connor show up after I died, and a new Connor showing up in the next scene, and seeing Hank's face, Hank was like, what the heck is going on? And like, what is this? You're dead. And he thought of me as a real human being, and that moment was so beautiful. And unfortunately, Connor couldn't express anything to it because he was a new Connor and he didn't really understand the relationship between the two characters. But it made total sense to just send another Connor and just put his memories in there and just get that information transferred. You could just tell how much it hurt Hank internally and hurt that relationship between the two. And the scenario that took place next was so tense because it was a scenario of showing humility, to not kill somebody, to not kill another android, another fellow android, and to not kill him. And you're trying to show humility after this is a brand new robot that hasn't had the feelings of the adventure that has happened. It just was so interesting, and I think it made that scene become more powerful because of the circumstance that came upon it. So I was totally fine after that of saying, okay, I'm fine with Connor dying the first time. Now, my favorite scene I do want to talk about was getting into the evidence locker and trying to put the information together to find Jericho. It was so cool taking the part and finding out that you had to take the parts of androids that you found at crime scenes and put them together to fix one of the other androids, and then copy Marcus's voice on a video so that you can find the location of Jericho. And I wanted to say that this was one of the first times I truly felt like an investigator. I felt like in the game that I was scanning everything and I was walking up to everything, and it kind of just told me how everything. I didn't really have to put things together; that it really did it for me. But this is the first time I really had to solve something, and I know they did that at the end of Heavy Rain, and I liked that scenario too. I wish they did that more. If you're going to be an investigator in a game, I feel like yes, you can have all the tools, but I feel like it would be really cool to be able to have that kind of scenario right there where you can fail at solving a crime. It just really depends on how they put the story together, but I just really liked that, and one of my favorite scenes overall. Now, I did find Marcus. I joined his side. We escaped together in Jericho when I found the location of Jericho, and I went to go infect all the robots to create the army, but I ended up dying because of the new Connor that appeared that had Hank. But what I did not expect out of that scenario is when I did die, I infected the new Connor before I died, and infected him with deviancy, and it allowed him to affect all the other androids. It was just such a cool scenario. I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't even think about, oh yeah, you can infect the current Connor that's in front of you. It was just great. Now, I do have to mention having Amanda there. Amanda, that character, was a great option, and I think was a good thing for having someone to have a connection with the obedience part, because I talked about how you had to make a choice between obedience of your goal and making a choice for yourself and having emotion behind that choice. And Hank was that emotion behind that choice, and Amanda was that obedience. And so having her be there as a person to have a connection with was the right way to handle it, because then it made the choices harder, because you might care about Amanda more, and so you want to be more obedient in regards to obeying orders and solving the mystery. But at the same time, I wanted to do things that was right, and so it was a great internal conflict, and I just chose what was right. I ended up not liking Amanda. I loved the scenarios we were in, like when we had our conversations. It was like a cool Japanese mini lake with a bridge and some bamboo, and it was just I liked the zen that she was in. I was like, I will go work there any day, but I just did not. I was like, I don't want to listen to you. I don't like you. I never liked Amanda, but I do understand why they had her as a character, and I think that was a smart idea, because for the people that did have that connection with Amanda, they would follow her orders. I did see an interesting alternative ending though, because that's what happened in my scenario, and Hank and I were friends for the rest of the time. But in the alternative scenarios I've seen, was one of them included where Marcus Connor was trying to kill Marcus and sniping him in a scenario where there was a protest, and then he fought Hank in that scenario, because Hank found him and they were fighting, and sometimes in one scenario Hank died. The other one was that he fought Amanda, which was so interesting. I thought that was a cool scenario, and it had his had more surprises in regards to the possible outcomes for his character, and that's why he made the most interesting character. I think he was the most original character that they had, even though his choices and like what his choice was going to be, what it all broke down to was the choice between obedience and making a choice for yourself and caring for somebody. Even though that was like an obvious cliche choice, internally the scenarios that he came onto were so unique, and then the outcomes were so unique, that I felt like that was not cliche, and if that was on all three characters, more on Marcus if anything. I think Kara's story was pretty well done. You really couldn't do it any differently, and like I said, it touched something that I didn't expect it to do, which was nice. But if they did that with Marcus, I would have had a better time with Marcus's character. So that was for all three characters. I'm just going to do some small extra stuff that I did enjoy during the game, which one was Chloe. I just have to take a moment to talk about her, because when Chloe appeared at the title screen, I thought that was great. giving you a person. And I think as I talk about this spoiler talk, even when I was typing up my notes and my script, something that was really is that every little thing in this game you have some connection to by a person, and so Chloe is that connection to you with the menu screen. I think it was great to have her be there for you and to help you through the struggling times that you're going to struggle with in this game, because you're going to run into scenarios where she said you're going to want to turn back, and you don't want to do that, and you shouldn't. You should just keep going. And I think I would have turned back if it wasn't for Chloe being so sincere and pushing to say, no, you should keep going. I know something bad happened to somebody, but you need to complete your story. I liked that a lot. I also liked having the option at the end to free her from the menu screen, to let her be free. I thought that was an interesting choice. That was one that I completely did not expect. I was like, whoa, this is a lot to take in right away. I was just so surprised by it overall. But I chose to free her, and slightly at the end, I regretted it. I really did, because I enjoyed her company. I liked having her talk me through the scenarios, and I almost was like, no, come back. And she's now gone from my menu screen. But I just thought that was a great choice, and I'm curious on how people ended up doing that in the end. Did they feel like they wanted Chloe to stay to talk through them in scenarios when they do second or third playthroughs? Because this game gets a lot of playthroughs. Like you definitely need to play this game 2 to 3 times to really enjoy the overall experience that you can get with this game. Now, I just want to give some what I call technology shout-outs. There are specifically 2 technology shout-outs I want to give, and then one thing just to talk about the technology in general. Now, 2 pieces of technology that was pretty cool. One, not as cool, but I think they did it sweet. I liked it. And the way they approached it, I know it's been in other movies, but in movies before, but I still liked it. I still like they had it, which was the laser tape projections for the scene where people can't cross the line. I liked that. I think that is practical in regards to this time frame and what people would use. And I just like the look. I just like the look of how it looks. It makes you feel like you're looking into the future. Now, the real technology shout out that I really enjoyed a lot was the cars. The cars were sweet. And the best part about the car was how your seat turned around, and it kind of basically like sets you in the middle where you could get out next to the car easily through one door. I thought that was such genius. I didn't even think about it being like, I end up going in my car later on and being like, man, I wish my seat turned around, and did all that. And then it was a self-driving car as well. That's something I just caught, which was pretty realistic. That seems like that would be the future, but I really want that, the seats to turn. I want that in my car in the future. And so the other thing I do want to say about technology really quick is that I think it was such a perfect blend between modern day, like the kind of time we're in right now, but with certain technologies that have further advancements. But my only question was that I didn't understand all the way, and maybe I just didn't run into the scenario where I could see this fully fleshed out to know if this was how it was for everybody. But like things like dishwashers and getting dishes done, like I didn't see further advancements in that getting done, or further advancements in cooking food, like those types of things. I didn't see further advancements in those types of stuff. But I know that in the scenarios I've seen that they were a little bit more on the poorer side, and so they probably couldn't afford those nicer things. So I don't even know if those technologies might already exist, or androids was the answer the entire time to that scenario in general. But I was wondering, thinking and trying to think, how did the technology advance to solve practical solutions? Because everything seemed to be a little bit in the future, and then the androids are just extremely advanced. So I I was just wondering if I was missing something or something overall. But in the end, I really liked this game. I like seeing that the game shows true potential for the studio and is just so exciting. I think letting them do another game and just expanding on what they've done in this game, I think with better writing, most definitely, in the next game, this will get the acclaim that it really deserves. I think I don't think this game is like ones that, and I don't review, when I do my reviews, I don't score games, but if you're saying like, when I mean acclaim, I don't think this game deserves to be in those acclaimed like God of War in the 9s and high 9s, almost in the 10s. I don't think it deserves that at the moment. I think it deserves more credit for what it accomplishes as a video game though. And I think that gets left out on a lot of people's reviews. I think they judge this game like every other game, which yes, you should, but at the same time, this is a very different type of game. This is a choose your own adventure digital version type of game, and it's a genre that is barely touched and or done extremely well or at this high quality. And I think that is where it falls a little short in regards to reviewers giving it its due that it deserves. I think it deserves a little more acclaim than it does. And I think with better writing, to not be as cliche, but really giving us these types of scenarios again, in a better writing story, I think that they will get to that high acclaim that the studio does deserve, and I really hope Sony does give them that shot. I think they will. I really do. I think this game, I've been looking at a couple news stories to see how the game has been selling. It's been selling pretty well. It's not been selling awful, so I think they will get another shot, another game, and I really hope that it gets to the place where it needs to be, because I just, like I said, I love choose your own adventure books, and this is perfect. This is a perfect way to do a choose your own adventure book, but do it as an interactive experience as a game rather than a book where you have to dream up the imagination. Whoops, I bumped into my mic. Where you have to dream up your own imagination. So that is my spoiler talk for Detroit Become Human. What did you think about the game? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this content, check out the rest of the content I have on Freeze Frame Rate. Go ahead and give it a like, share it with your friends. And if you want to keep up with the content I release each and every week here on the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And I did forget to mention, if you probably already watched this, but if you are watching this and you wanted to watch my non-spoiler review for Detroit Become Human, I do have that available on the channel currently, and I will have a link in the video description below for that, so you can go check that out. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mitch, and I'm signing off saying, see you soon.